Welcome back to Learn with Chris. I'm Chris. Of all the poems in the Poetic Edda, I believe that the Völuspá is the one that gives the most comprehensive viewpoints from the beginning and the end, from the creation story and the eschatology of Ragnarok. So I think it's the most important poem to have a kind of a complete or overall understanding of the gods, the Norse gods, and the mythology itself. So I'm gonna break it down as much as I can. I'm gonna go through every stanza. Now this is gonna be over multiple videos. Every stanza of the Völuspá. I'm gonna go through it with a fine-tooth comb, trying to extract meaning and speculation and as much as I can manage. Again, I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm just trying my hardest to understand it as deeply as possible. I'm going to include the Old Norse as well as two different English translations, and they'll be up on the screen, and then we'll go through it bit by bit through every word, every line, and try to extract as much as we can from this very important poem about the early days as well as the end days. So please forgive my not very good Norse pronunciation, but I will try my best. So this is stanza 1 of the Völuspá in Old Norse. Hjof bith ek allar helgarkinder, Mary och minni mogu hemdaller, viltu at ek volfather, vel framtälja forn spjolfera, fa or frumst man. Okay, our first English translation is from Völuspá.org, and it says, "Hearing I ask from the holy races, from Heimdall's sons, both high and low. Thou wilt, Valfather, that well I relate, old tales I remember of men long ago." And our second English translation is from Jackson Crawford's translation of the Poetic Edda. "Heed my words, all classes of men, you greater and lesser children of Heimdall. You summoned me, Odin, to tell what I recall of the oldest deeds of gods and men." Okay, so who is I? You summoned me, Odin, to tell what I recall. Okay, so the person the narrator of the Völuspá is a Vola. What is a Vola? A Vola is a seeress. A Vola is a woman with Sather magic abilities. A woman with the ability to use Sather magic and to tell the future. So someone with prophetic abilities or prophetic knowledge. So Odin is summoning her to tell prophecy. However, it's not just prophecy, because it's also, as we see in both translations, old tales I remember of men long ago, or the oldest tales of God and men. So it's not just the future, it's also the past, right? So this Volva with prophetic knowledge, because she's a user of Sather, she can tell the future, and of course that'll be the end half of the Völuspá, where she'll be talking about Ragnarok, future event. She's also talking about creation as a beginning event as well. So it's past and future. There's actually very little present in the entire Völuspá. It pretty much transitions from past into future with almost very little or none at all references to the present. And this makes a lot of sense for what the Volva is. she's dead. If we looked at a different poem, Baldur's Drama, it's Baldur's dreams. So Baldur has dreams of his death. So Odin rides to Hell to find out what's going on. And he ends up raising a dead Cirrus, a dead Vola, and questioning her about the Baldur's dreams. So I think the point here is that, so that's a Vola in the Baldur's Drama, but we also have a Volva in Baldur's Drama, and we have a Volva here, different Cirrus, but both dead, in the sense that this Volva has knowledge of creation, knowledge of tales from men long ago, and of course, as we continue through our stanzas, she'll be talking about the beginning of the world with Ymir, the Aesir-Vanir War, so knowledge of the early times. And she specifically says, I remember, right? So here in the first translation, old tales I remember of men long ago. And I'm pretty sure as we continue on through other stanzas, she talks as if she was there and she remembers not what people told her, but what she saw, right? So this indicates that this Volva is ancient, as in she had firsthand knowledge of the beginnings of creation because she was there. Now she's dead and she's been summoned up by Odin. Now, there's not a lot in this first stanza to indicate that this is an act of necromancy on Odin's part, although we do know that he can do that because, again, Baldur's Drama is an example of that, where he quite specifically raised up a dead Volva to question about Baldur's dreams. So we know he can do that, and we know he is a god of death, which is one of my videos, of course. So he has that ability, but it's actually in the very last stanza, actually the very last line of the Völuspá. The Volva tells her story. She tells her tale, creation and Ragnarok, and then she sinks back, right? She retires. She sinks back into the earth. So she returns to death because she has given up all of her knowledge, and then she's allowed to return to her natural state of being dead. So this is an act of necromancy on Odin's part to raise, because again, she has access to both the past because she was there, and the future because she is a Cirrus, she is a Volva, she has access to Sailor magic, so she can tell the future and she also knows the past in both cases. Now, one thing that's interesting is that in Baldur's Drama, Odin actually says to the Volva, tell me what Hel has planned for Baldur, and I will tell you of the deeds of above, or the going-ons of above. So I will tell you about the living world. So it's like an exchange of knowledge that Odin engages in with the Volva in Baldur's Drama. Here, there's no indication of that at all. There's no indication that this Volva has negotiated with Odin for her to tell her story. So let's examine that. Why did he have to exchange knowledge with the Volva in Baldur's Drama, but he didn't do it here, or at least there's no mention of it here? So we can speculate about that. So I think the speculation for the reason is that, so if we look at the English translations, heed my words, all classes of men, you greater and lesser children of Heimdall. Heed my words. Or the first translation, hearing I ask from holy races, from Heimdall's sons, both high and low. The Volva is not just telling Odin the information, right, about the creation, about Ragnarok, she's telling everyone, right, all classes of men, which of course means humanity, right? Children of Heimdall, which means humanity. I'll talk about that in a second. So she's telling everyone, right? So not just telling Odin, right? So quite specifically in Baldur's drama, the Volva was talking to Odin about Baldur, quite specifically about his death, prophecy of his death. But here, the information, while Odin is the one who raised her from death and is asking her these questions to learn about the creation and Ragnarok, but she's telling all, right? She's telling everyone, right? So maybe that's why there's no negotiation or no payment required, because it's not just for Odin, it's for all. It's for all. So what do they mean by greater and lesser children of Heimdall as so this comes from Rigsthula, of course, the poem where Heimdall, as under the name of Rig, he ends up spending 3 nights with, I did another video about this before, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, grandfather, grandmother, and mother and father, and spawned children with each 3 of these people to create the 3 social classes in Norse society, right? The Thrall, Carl, and Jarl, right? So the greater and lesser children of Heimdall, of course, would be the nobility, and all the way down to the slave, to the thrall. So it encompasses all people, right? So the Volva is telling everyone about this story that she's going to tell about the past and about the future. I think that's about all for stanza 1 that I want to mention. Yes. Okay. So I'll move on with stanza 2. Okay, continuing on with stanza 2. This one is a lot more difficult to read in Old Norse, but I will give it a try. Ekman jotna or umborna. Tha forthum mig foida hofthu. New man ek hema, new evithur. Moth viet meron fear mold Nathan. Okay, kind of hard. First English translation from Völuspá.org. I remember yet the giants of yore, who gave me bread in the days gone by. 9 worlds I know, the 9 in the tree, with mighty roots beneath the mold. And our second translation from Jackson Crawford. I remember the giants born so long ago. In those ancient days they raised me. I remember 9 worlds, 9 giantesses, and the seed from which Yggdrasil sprang. So the Volva was raised or taken care of by Jotnar. Now, does that make her a Jotun herself? It's not clear. Maybe not. Maybe. But do remember that the Jotnar were quite knowledgeable. And for example, Odin visiting Vafthrûdnir in the poem Vafthrûdnismal to go into a knowledge contest with that giant, and that giant, or Jotun, was considered to be the wisest and most knowledgeable of all beings. So there could be a link here. Perhaps this Volva that Odin is raising to question, perhaps she is Jotun, right? Which could attribute for the knowledge that she has. And she was there at the beginning with creation, raised by them. 9 worlds I know, the 9 in the tree. So this is clearly the nine realms attached to Yggdrasil. Both translations are pretty clear about that. The Jackson Crawford translation has the word 9 giantesses. I think the word Ivithur could also be translated as troll woman as well. So giantess or troll woman. I think troll in Old Norse has a lot more evil connotations. It's like a curse, of course. If you say the trolls take you, that would be a curse, right? To effectively similar to, to hell with you or something like that in modern English. So it's using that name as a curse, right? So the trolls, whatever trolls were definitely considered to be evil and monstrous. And if they're equated with the Jotnar, then that matches there as well. Right. So the Volva remembers the beginnings of time. She remembers the first Jotun, the first Jotnar. She was raised by them, and she remembers the tree. She remembers Yggdrasil. Now, from Jackson Crawford's translation, it says from the seed from which Yggdrasil sprang, which seems to imply, just even before Yggdrasil was Yggdrasil, because again, the whole cyclical nature of Norse mythology. So, if we're in the current age, epoch, whatever you want to call it, the tree Yggdrasil, but this is not the first. There was something before that, right? So from whence some tree before Yggdrasil, so Yggdrasil as a seed. And of course, once we go into the next cycle, there'll be a new tree, right, with a different name and all of that. And it's also, of course, important to note about 9, right? So this is it's only in the second stanza of Völuspá, and we already have 9 a couple of times, 9 worlds, 9 in the tree, or 9 worlds, 9 giantesses, new in Norse. 9, of course, is the sacred number for the Norse, and we see 9 recurring over and over and over again. 9 realms, of course. 9 steps Thor takes after he's poisoned by Jormungandr before he dies. Odin 9 days hanging from the tree before he gains the knowledge of the runes. And there's a lot more examples of the word 9. 3 is interesting too. Very often, anytime there's any type of sexual relations, for example, Rig or Heimdall sleeping with great-grandmother, grandmother, and mother, it's always 3 nights, right? 3 nights before a child is born. Well, 9 months later, of course. But 3 is also there as well with some sexual references. And when Odin, when he got the meat of poetry, he stayed 3 nights with, what was her name? Gundlot, I think, the giantess, the Jotun, female Jotun. He stayed with her with 3 nights as well, to steal the meat of poetry. But of course, he was sleeping with her for 3 nights as well. So 3 times 3 is 9. I don't know if there's a connection there between 3 and 9, but both numbers appear to be quite important. 9 definitely, there's no doubt about it. But 3 often pops up as well, especially in sexual connotations. Okay, so that's all I have to say about stanza 2, so let's move on to stanza 3. Stanza 3, let me try it in Old Norse. Orvar alda thar Ymir bigthi, vara sander ne se ne swaller unner. Joth fansk eva ne up himen, gap var gnunga ein gras chwergi. English translation, 1 from Völuspá.org. Of old was the age when Ymir lived. sea, nor cool waves, nor sand were there. Earth had not been, nor heaven above, but a yawning gap, and grass nowhere. And the translation from Jackson Crawford. It was at the very beginning, it was Ymir's time. There was no sand, no sea, no cooling waves, no earth, no sky, no grass. Just Ginnungagap. Okay, so this is about creation. So before creation, there was a void, yawning gap, Ginnungagap, which translates either as yawning gap or yawning void. So that's the potential, the raw potential from which creation had come out of. There's very little here. There's a lot more about the creation in the prose Edda. I'm pretty sure it's in Gylfaginnin. I don't remember what chapters, maybe around chapter 5 or chapter 6, something like that. So Snorri Sturluson in the prose Edda will go into a lot more detail about about Ymir, the first Jotun, and the creation from chaos. There's a lot more in the prose Edda. This is just a little bit there. But the idea that there's no earth and there's no heaven, there's no waves, there's no sand, there's nothing, right? Just complete emptiness. And also no grass is interesting. It's also interesting that the Norse word for grass is grass. That's interesting. No grass. So grass, of course, is going to represent life here, because obviously animals eat grass and humans eat animals. So it's life itself, right? No life, right? So no earth, no heaven, no nothing. Just complete emptiness in the void. And that's Ymir's time, and that's where Ymir came out of. So just to quickly note, it's not here, but from the prose Edda, we learned that effectively there was an area of heat, a realm of heat called Muspelheim, and an area of cold, Niflheim, and the heat and the cold they were in the void of Ginnungagap, and the cold came and the heat came, and once they reached, they kind of like, the heat melted the ice, right? And that's coming out of that was the first creature, the first being, Ymir. And Ymir in Norse translates something as roar or noise, the noise out of the gap, the noise out of the void, the first sound, something like that. So it's actually, it's very poetic. It's very interesting. So from the translation here, it doesn't really say that, and it would make sense that the Volva isn't saying, I saw this, I was there. There's no indication from either translations that that's what she's saying. She just says she knows about it. It would be kind of weird if she says, I saw Ymir, because that means she would have been the first being, not him. So she's not saying that, she's just mentioning that this happened, right? So yeah, not so much to talk about for this stanza. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's just the creation myth. Not much really to kind of dive into here. So let's move on to the fourth stanza. Okay, so let's do one more stanza, and then we'll call the video an end. So let me attempt the Old Norse. Author burs sinner biotham ipthu, fair or Midgarth meron skopu, sol skyn suna o salor stena, thavar grundgroin gronum lauki. So the Völuspá.org translation. Then Bor's sons lifted the level land. Midgarth the mighty, there they made. The sun from the south warmed the stones of earth, and green was the ground with growing leeks. And Jackson Crawford's translation. But Odin and his brothers created the earth. It was they who made Midgard. The sun shone from the south upon the stands of their hall, and the land turned green with growing plant life. So the sons of Bur is, okay, so we talked a little bit about Ymir. Ymir spawned the race of the Jotnar from his body, but there was a second creature. How do I say her name? Authumla, the cosmic cow, and she was licking a block of ice, and she revealed parts of another being, which ended up being the first god, Buri. Buri? Yeah, Buri. So from Buri we get Bor, and then from Bor, who married Besla, a Jotun woman, we get Odin and his brothers, Vili and Ve. So Thor himself, his father, the line of fathers from Odin are just from gods, but from his mother you have the Jotnar line. So the sons of Bor are Odin, Vili, and Ve. And it doesn't say it here. They just said that they created the earth, they created Midgard. But again, if we go back to the prose Edda, we learn that they killed Ymir. So the sons of Bur killed the first being Ymir, whose gushing blood created a flood and almost drowned all of the Jotnar, with the exception of Bergelmir and his wife. Only two survived, and then they spawned the further race of the Jotnar. And I personally believe that this act of potential genocide is one of the reasons of animosity between the Jotnar and the Aesir and the gods. So, and again, I talked about this in my who are the Jotnar video, who are the giants, right? Yeah, so from the prose Edda, we learned that the creation of Midgard was from the body of Ymir. Here it doesn't say that, but we get that additional information from the prose Edda. So they crafted Earth, Midgard, from Ymir's body. He was a gigantic being. And it goes into information like the rivers made, his blood made the oceans, and his head was the heavens, and his teeth was mountains, and his bones was this and that. And so different parts of Ymir's body was used for different things to create Midgard. But I think the symbology here, of course, is that the Jotnar, because I haven't mentioned this in this video, but the actual word Jotun, the giant, the actual word means consuming or devouring. They are things or creatures of chaos and destruction. They devour, they destroy, they consume. That's what their name means, and that's what they are. So through like they are chaos, right? And then the gods are using their bodies to create. Right, so it's that order out of chaos. It's that it's the act of creation. So I think that's quite interesting, and I think it actually sets kind of the two sides, right? So eventually we get into Ragnarok, and we get to the end, the war between the Jotnar and their allies versus the Aesir and their allies, kind of like a world war. But effectively, the Jotnar representing chaos and destruction, because that's exactly what they do, right? So the whole thing with at the end of Ragnarok is Surt. He burns it all down, right? With his flaming sword, he destroys Midgard. He burns the world, and he burns Yggdrasil, right? So that's an act of destruction, right? Perhaps it's Perhaps it's either out of revenge, because Odin and his brothers tried to murder or kill the entire race of the Jotnar. From, the flood out of Ymir's body is blood. So maybe it's an act of revenge, anger that, the Jotnar had held on to throughout time, or it's just who they are. They are creatures of chaos and destruction, right? And the gods, as creatures of structure and order and creation, are opposed to the Jotnar, right? Now, this is my interpretation. I know a lot of people don't look at it in this way. They might see them as different aspects of the world, not in such an opposing or in such a negative way that I do. I'm not Team Wolf at all. I see them as evil, and I see them as creatures of chaos and destruction. They are to be fought. They are to be opposed. They are to be destroyed. But I know a lot of other people who are interested in Norse spirituality or Norse religion. They might not look at the Jotnar in that way. They might look at them in a more positive way. I don't. Right. So the sons of Bur create the world, Midgard, and here they talk about the sun shining from the south. I'm not really sure what that means from the south. I don't know if that's any particular, if that's special for some reason. Don't know. But the lantern's green with growing leeks, plant life. Of course, again talking about the act of creation, right? So the first plant life, because when back in the previous stanza talking about Kagungagap, they mentioned quite specifically there's no grass, right? No life. But here we do have growing plant life, right? So again, no life, and now we do have life, right? So again, the whole concept of the gods as beings of creation and order and structure, right? So they build their stone upon the stones of their hall, stones of earth, right? So it's again creation, building, right? So opposition to the Jotnar. All right, I think I'm going to end it here. So we've gone through 4 stanzas of the Völuspá. I will continue this. It's going to take quite a while to finish the entire poem, if I remember correctly. There are 66 stanzas in Völuspá. There's 60-something. I think it's 66, 64, 66, I forget. But so it's going to be quite a bit to go through everything and to break it down as much as I can. If you have any additional ideas to throw in here, please, I'm welcome to hear them, and I look forward to reading your comments. So thank you for listening. Have a good day, and take care.